Let me ask you this. Would you give a parrot control over nukes? I didn't think so. Yet, we are about to do exactly that. The fact that most people out there do not understand the difference between AI and actual intelligence, or even that there is a difference, is a huge problem. They believe that ChatGPT gives them real answers, or that Sora produces real images and videos. They don't. And the problem already starts in the name artificial intelligence. A lot of people seem to believe it means non-human intelligence, but what it actually means is false intelligence. In this video, we'll unpack why mistaking AI for real intelligence is so dangerous and how it is already reshaping our world in ways we barely notice. Specifically, we'll look at how this confusion is playing out in 3 key areas of our lives and how it will affect you and me. First, we will look at culture and creativity, how art, music, and media change when AI is treated as a creator. Then we look into knowledge and education. What happens to learning and expertise when students and institutions lean into AI. And lastly, we'll look at work and business. How do jobs, companies, and productivity get distorted by over-trusting AI? And we will uncover the turning point we are at. And if you're thinking right now, I've already heard tons of warnings about AI, well, not like this. Because most AI doomsayers focus on the idea that AI will get out of control by becoming smarter than us. But the truth is both worse and ironically the exact opposite of that. Because as so often, the biggest tech problem is sitting in front of the screen. Right now, almost all creative fields are in the middle of an identity crisis. AI tools can generate a ton of new content like images, music, whole novels in an instant. And for a lot of people, and at first glance, that's just great. But behind the scenes, this is producing a flood of all the same stuff. Clarkesworld magazine, a major science fiction publication, was forced to pause open submissions because the editors were spammed with thousands of AI-written slop. In just 1 month, already in early 2023, they banned over 500 submitters for AI-generated content, compared to just 20 the previous year. People see a cool AI painting or deep story and think, wow, the machine is so creative. But it's important to realize it's not, and even less than you might already think. What AI does is it's mixing and matching patterns exclusively from the past. Or as the New Yorker put it, AI is a technology of averages. It produces text and images that gravitate toward the most common pattern in its training data, which means its outputs are always one version of a cliché. And I can still remember when your writing was tossed in your face for catering to cliches. But what does that mean? Well, for instance, when you ask for a sci-fi city at night, the AI will give you a dozen of neon-lit cityscapes under a starry night, a mix of the most common depiction of all sci-fi and cyberpunk stories made so far. And exactly because it is what it has seen for 1,000 times before. It won't spontaneously invent a city on a giant turtle unless a human has already written such a story. These tools remix the average and the expected. They cannot produce anything original because that is not how they were programmed, and arguably never can be programmed like that. Whereas for human creators, originality is one of the highest priorities they strive for. And it's easy to prove. Greg Rutkowski has become a poster child for the problem. He told Insider that before AI art, it was really rare to see a similar style to his online. Now, AI generators can pump out thousands of pictures in his exact style at the click of a button. In fact, his name was used as a prompt for over 93,000 AI-generated images, more than Picasso or Van Gogh combined. Rutkowski says, "My name is being used a lot to generate AI images. I feel like something is happening that I cannot control." In other words, his unique creative voice is being mechanically duplicated everywhere, and he can't stop it, so far. If you are an artist or writer who relies on your craft to pay the bills, you are feeling the pressure to use AI just to keep up, even if it means compromising your vision. But it's a slippery slope, because over time you will notice that your own voice or your own visual expression will start to sound and feel generic. Yeah. We've all been told to kill your darlings, but there is a difference between killing your darlings and napalming your whole personality. But as a consumer, you might think, well, I'm not paying my bills with art. What do I care? These are luxury professions for people with no real problems. Well, it will hit you too. Maybe it already has. Didn't you notice that your whole feed is just the same crap? Didn't you feel like when you click on Netflix that all the suggestions are the same and none of them are exciting? Because not only is the entertainment that follows predictable, even the whole curation process is maximized for predictability. And who doesn't want to watch something predictable? So a lot of people are already talking about algorithmic déjà vu, where everything new feels like a lame remix of something you've already seen 1,000 times. The very reason a lot of people consume media, in order to feel something, is increasing, leaving you numb. But if we look at the big picture, the implications for our civilizations are even darker. We already have studies that objectively show that AI-generated art and stories tend to land around the 40th or 50th percentile in creativity compared to human work. So average. If we flood the cultural landscape with just average meh, and then train future AIs on that, it's not far-fetched to fear that we are in a downward spiral. The risk is moral autophagy. Each generation of AI eats its own tail, gradually losing the outlier innovative ideas and converging to the bland middle. Over time, we will reach a point where all new songs sound the same, like 4 chords. And all new movies blend into the same stereotypical crap. And the next paradigm-shifting artists can't even break through because the field has been homogenized. Think about it. Why would any studio ever invest in something wild if they know they can just get the masses with mid? It's way too much risk. It's like a breeding farm. Is that a word? A breeding farm that instead of giving rise to new species is collapsing into one overbred clone with missing hooves and bunny ears instead. It's not enough that they want us to be consumers first, but we should also be happy with eating trash. That's exactly where this is going. But we want variety. And yeah, that's not the most streamlined and safest bet to get the click, but I'm sorry, that's how humans are. But now you might be thinking, well, human creativity also remixes the past. Yes, but there is an important difference. Humans do it with intent and always forward-pushing. It's actually very interesting why AI cannot and never will be able to do the same. Here's a link to a video I made about that very topic, but I will also link it at the end of this one if you haven't seen it. Human artists draw on influences very deliberately and then add emotional context, personal experiences, and wild experimentation, which cannot be mass-produced because then it wouldn't be their individual experience anymore. How do people not get that? The machines pump out what is statistically most likely. Even with us trying to steer them in original directions, it's in their code. AI's creativity is the path of least surprise. If we all start letting machines set the creative agenda, we risk turning our culture into a monoculture. Or as a writer from The New Yorker put it, the danger is that we are averaging culture on autopilot, losing the vivid outliers that push art forward. So what AI does is just taking what we know and feeds it back to us over and over until we are afraid of new ideas. The biggest debt we will have to pay for the misconception that AI has something to do with intelligence is going to come from our education system. Both students and teachers are trading AI as a shortcut to knowledge. In high school, students see that they can get entire essays or homework solutions from ChatGPT in seconds, and then go back to skibidi toilet memes. And on the other hand, some professors and teachers don't have the ability or capacity to deal with the consequences. And it should be obvious as day that when students write essays with AI, they may achieve grades easily, but their brains are barely, if at all, engaged. An experiment at MIT showed that ChatGPT users had dramatically less brain activity while writing. In fact, after completing assignments, 80% of those students couldn't even recite what they had written, because the AI had done the thinking for them, even though it's not thinking. Nobody's thinking. That's where we had it. Maybe we're there. So as a student, you might feel like you're getting so much work done, but education is not about getting work done. That's only the means, not the goal. Have we all forgotten that? It's about learning something in the process. This happens because of the very category error we are talking about. We are confusing giving an answer for having internalized it. When a chatbot puts out a seemingly correct explanation of a concept, students often assume the answer is knowledge and skip the struggle to actually learning. And I think this is a lesson as old as time. When you were a kid, did you never see the difference between looking at and trying to memorize a math formula and actually coming up with it? One is a completely different beast. But they think the AI knows this, so by reading it, I know it too. In one large survey of college students, researchers found that many students were treating chatbots like tutors, asking for essays, proofs, or summaries, but obviously they are not engaging with the material at all. The result is what researchers call metacognitive laziness. Students offload reasoning to the machine and never consciously work through problems themselves. Students who really have no chance if we don't do anything about that are winning battles and losing the war on a gigantic scale. They can confidently make it through the semester with the help of AI and then be hit in the face in the final exam when they realize they can't answer any questions without the chatbot. And only if they are lucky, they get hit in the face. I've seen this with my own eyes. Since 10 years, I'm teaching a class on writing at a university, and we always get reports from the plagiarism office after the submission of the final paper has been closed. These reports indicate the amount of AI-written text in the final work of the students. In 2023, amongst my 50 students, I had maybe 3 papers with significant AI content. Last year, 2025, I had 30 from 50 papers submitted. And some of them had properly declared where they had used AI and in which way, and others just haven't. Even crazier than that, the AI had provided real existing sources for the students' arguments. But when I went and checked the sources myself, they were from scientific areas the students wrote about, but the facts the student or the AI had sourced were nowhere to be found. So the paper looked real with real sources and real arguments, but it was fake. The sources didn't say what the AI said they would. I'm not the only one amongst educators who are doing something about it, because in many schools they now explicitly ban in-class use of ChatGPT. In universities, some professors now require in-person essays or oral exams to ensure students really know the material. And that's a good start, because a recent Hackinger Institute report summarizing 2 separate studies found that students using AI write better essays on the surface, but they don't learn anymore and often lose motivation. The authors observed that learners might become overly reliant on ChatGPT, using it to easily complete specific learning tasks without fully engaging in the learning. Yeah. No shit, Sherlock. The long-term civilizational risks are even more alarming, because if an entire generation uses AI to gloss over learning as a reflex, we will end up with a workforce that has credentials on paper but never learned how to think. Imagine doctors and engineers who memorized facts with AI quizzes but can't think critically in an emergency, or a population that can spout statistics but lacks the depth to analyze how policies relate to them. Oh wait, we already have that. There will be a widespread knowledge debt. On a societal level, this means knowledge becomes shallow and even easier to manipulate. A public that accepts AI's confident-sounding output for face value is a piece of cake for misinformation and demagogues. Too many people do not know the difference between something sounding right and something that is actually valuable. Semantics are not insight. And lastly, let's not forget that this will further inequality. Students with parents who are conscious about habits will learn to adapt. By using AI under supervision, habitualizing fact-checking, learning to learn completely without AI. But those who take the easy path, letting AI do the heavy lifting, will fall behind intellectually and be marginalized, only further widening the gap in our society. And the problem gets only worse when entering the workforce, because some employees will have a strong foundational intuition and others will just know how to push buttons. Over time, the gap grows, and we will face a credential crisis. If diplomas and job qualifications can be earned with AI cheats, how could employers trust them? We might go to painful in-person exams or practical tests for job interviews even more because your credentials are no longer saying anything about your education. If you ask me, the education system has to ban those tools, especially in the beginning and also depending on the subject matter. You cannot have LLMs in classes that are supposed to teach you to write. We are on the track to build a smart tech society where people think at the level of their tools and not at the level of their potential. And as a society, the result will again be stagnation or even collapse from the lack of skill. If we don't correct course by teaching critical thinking and disregard AI literacy, the foundation of our collective knowledge and education will collapse. And for those who think, but I don't want my kid to fall behind in their proficiency of using AI tools, don't worry. These tools are addictive, and the companies who make them are making sure an ape can use them. In business and work, we face a bit of a different story. Here, AI is the solution the system was waiting for. Finally, no more workers to deal with. I'm still baffled by the enthusiasm every other CEO goes on Bloomberg and promises layoffs. Like, what? I might be wrong, but I thought capitalism was a way to increase prosperity for society, like as a whole. But maybe I missed that memo. But in the business world, we have to look at two layers. The first one is the gigantic bubble we are facing, and the other one is the long-term problem. And the problem is not people losing their jobs, but both layers again are grounded in the same mistake, taking AI for something it's not. Let's start with the bubble. There are plenty of videos you can watch about that, so let me just give you the gist of it. We are undertaking a lot of investments on the one hand into AI, coupled with a lot of promises of productivity gains, all based on the assumption that AI will be able to replace the human worker. But now we are starting to see productivity gains are not coming, and yeah, we can't replace workers as easily as we might have prayed for. If you look at the insane ramp-up of computing power on the one hand, the data centers, the chip manufacturing, etc., and then look at what companies are doing with it, it's not matching up. Not a single industry-leading company has yet come up with a big use case of value creation, like products or services that weren't possible before. All they have done is introducing chatbots, automate, and make things a little bit more efficient. That's a mismatch of gigantic proportions. When you are listening today to discussions about AI, you can simply replace the word AI with digitization and have the same discussions from 15 years ago. No data, no AI, no digitization. Firewalls and silos, no digitization, no AI. It's the same old thing. And those chickens are going to come home to roost in a big way. Now you might think, well, those value-creating business model innovations will come sooner or later. Well, first of all, in terms of market reactions, sooner or later makes a big difference. Being early and being wrong, it's the same thing. But it becomes even clearer when we look at the most recent data. Data from the US has shown that companies that overhired during the pandemic now need to correct for their mistakes. But, in CEO style, which is definitely not we were wrong, no, but by covering up the true reason for letting people go and telling everyone AI can do it. But if we look at global employment data from those companies, we can see that they are firing people, for instances in the US, and tell people it's because of AI, and then realizing that they have to hire most of these people back in order to make even those small use cases work. But they don't do it in the US. Since the visa reform last year, those US companies are hiring back in Pakistan, India, the Philippines, and other places. So what we see is a gigantic dance around the golden cow of AI, and no one wants to be the one who brings the cow down first, making the cow bigger and giving it more golden grass until the cow explodes. Alright, enough with cows. So not only is misclassifying what AI will be able to do in the future is the problem, but the tendency of business to hype things up LinkedIn style will lead to a dire awakening. But this is only the bubble. There are also problems for the systems that will survive the burst. Inside the businesses, the misclassification error leads to us treating generative AI as if they were junior professionals with understanding and judgment, rather than a system that produces fluent, plausible output without knowing what is true, relevant, or risky. That changes how organizations behave. Verification starts being neglected. Redundancy, like 4-hour principles, gets cut. Human skepticism gets socially penalized, and the outputs varnish more and more gets mistaken for substance. It's surprising, in a field that was always so good at keeping surface-level plausibilities and substance separate. It's not like that field spent trillions of dollars for consultancies and PowerPoint slides just to have an external scapegoat for bad decisions and a lack of knowledge inside the firm. Oh, wait. Yeah. They did that. And it's already happening again. In October 2025, Deloitte's Australian member firm partially had to refund the government after it was found that the report they made contained AI-generated errors, including references to non-existent research and a fabricated quote from a court judgment. Again, the point isn't AI was used, the point is that the organization acted as though a tool that can produce authoritative language is therefore producing authoritative knowledge. And we all know about the problem when using AI for hiring. I can't remember where it was, but a company using AI in screening CVs found that the most promising candidates were named Jake and played squash, regardless of the position. Why? Well, it's the same problem we discussed in the creativity section before. AI can always only look back. When in the past only Jakes were hired and only Jakes made it to CEO, well, then that must mean that they are the best ones for the job, right? But also on the flip side of this, taking AI at face value is leading to people optimizing themselves for the machine, rewriting perfectly human histories into keyword-compatible templates, sanding down personality, avoiding non-standard life paths. They did that before AI, but now AI writes it for them and another AI, or maybe even the same AI, reads the CVs. So we end up with a fake workforce selected with fake standards, making fake reports, leading to fake decisions, leading to, well, collapse. Instead of trying to fake the capabilities of AI to make important business decisions, why didn't they start with an AI feature that automatically finds the best time for a meeting amongst 15 people? Oh yeah, because one is flashy and the other one is lame. Right, I get it. Sorry. When leaders believe AI is intelligent, they cut exactly the things that make systems resilient. Training pipelines, redundancies, second eyes, slow verification, and then, when a storm hits, new laws, new market regimes, rare operational events. The organization will discover it has accepted fake competence without maintaining an actual, i.e. human one. That is how you get failures that are not spectacular at the beginning, but catastrophic at the end. Plausible reports that guide policy until they don't. Effective hiring until there is no room left at the squash court. And decision systems that work on average until your edge case becomes the headline. So clearly we can see the fears of the overpowering AI gave an easy lunch to the actual culprit. AI slob everywhere and people who don't see it until it's too late. Recognizing the difference between real intelligence and false intelligence is the first step. We have to treat these tools as exactly what they are, tools, not brains. In culture, that means valuing and supporting genuine creators, because they are our future recommendation lists on Netflix, if we are lucky. Publishers, studios, and record labels should ignore AI and keep taking risks on human works. In education, schools should ban AI, and teaching students how to use AI critically only in the very last year before they hit the job market. The goal is to keep up the struggle of learning. And yeah, so we might need new forms of assessment, oral exams, project-based work, which means more teachers and more funding. In business, companies need to set policies. Depending on the level of criticality, AI should be either checked by people, and those people then carry the consequences, or on higher levels of criticality, it should be banned. What we really need is integrated AI in the small steps that make progress, like the meeting thing. Do it, Microsoft. do it. Across society, the only cure is awareness. So send this video to everyone who sent you an unironic AI Jesus. We must get the message across that these systems have no understanding. They only stitch together bits of what they've already seen. If you find this concerning, you should. The difference between looking smart and being smart matters. Many warnings about AI focus on doomsday superintelligence, but the immediate threat is far more subtle and already here. On the bright side, once we see the mechanics behind this clearly, we can fight it. Oh, and just one last thing. I asked ChatGPT whether banning AI in certain areas would make sense, given all the problems we're facing. I will let you guess the answer it gave me. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, consider liking, subscribing or commenting what you think ChatGPT said to me. It really does help the channel a bunch. Thank you to the Epic Opaque channel members for your continuous support. And if you are still skeptical, why am I so convinced that AI is not intelligent and never will be, this video will be of interest to you. Here we dive deep into exactly why these machines lack real comprehension, why LLMs will never reach AGI, and why we will never reach AGI regardless of quantum computing or anything you want to give the machines to reach it. See you next time.